It was 6 in the morning when the pounding began. Not a normal knock, not the soft kind you hear from a mailman or a neighbor. No, these were hard, sharp, desperate blows that rattled the wood and jolted me out of sleep. For a few seconds, I just sat there, confused, trying to understand what was happening. My heart was racing. The house was still dark. Only the faintest gray light was sliding through my curtains. I thought about ignoring it, pulling the blanket over my head and pretending I hadn't heard anything. But the pounding came again, louder, faster. Whoever was out there wasn't going away. I threw off the blanket, slipped into my robe, and started walking down the hallway. The floor felt cold under my bare feet. Each step made the air feel heavier. Something was wrong. I could feel it before I even reached the door. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar face. Arthur, my neighbor from 3 houses down. He was the kind of man you could count on. A retired veteran in his late 60s, calm, kind. Always the first to lend a hand when someone's car broke down or a tree branch fell in a storm. He was the man who helped me fix my yard after Elijah died 5 years ago. But the man outside my door wasn't the Arthur I knew. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes wide with something I hadn't seen on him, fear. Not worry, not concern. Real fear. I opened the door just a little. "Arthur, what's wrong?" He leaned close. "Ara, listen to me. Don't leave the house today. Please, no matter what happens, don't go outside. Don't open your door for anyone." His voice shook. Arthur's voice never shook. "What are you talking about?" I asked. "You're scaring me." He glanced down the empty street, then back at me. For a moment it looked like he wanted to explain, but he just shook his head. "I can't right now. You'll understand this afternoon. But you have to promise me. Lock your doors, close your windows, and don't open to anyone. Not even if they look like officials." "Officials?" I repeated. "Arthur, what is going on?" He took a shaky breath. "Please, Ara, trust me." And before I could stop him, he turned and walked quickly down the driveway, glancing left and right like a hunted man. Then he was gone. I stood there, my hand still on the doorknob, staring into the quiet morning. The sun hadn't even risen, but somehow it already felt like the longest day of my life. I closed the door, locked it, and leaned against it, trying to catch my breath. What had just happened? Arthur wasn't the kind of man who panicked. If he said to stay inside, there had to be a reason. I walked to the kitchen for water, my hands trembling so badly I almost dropped the glass. Everything looked normal. The breakfast table, the cups on their hooks, the old clock Elijah gave me on our 30th anniversary. But nothing felt normal anymore. Outside, the first light of morning painted the sky pink and orange. Normally on Tuesdays, I'd be getting ready to go to the Cedar Grove Community Center to help with the kids' reading program. It was my favorite thing to do since Elijah passed. It made the house feel less empty. But today, Arthur's words echoed in my mind. Don't leave. Don't open the door. Why? What was out there? Maybe he'd heard something on the news. Maybe there was a gas leak or a police chase or some emergency. But why not just tell me? And why the warning about officials? I peeked through the curtain. The street was quiet. Too quiet. Then I noticed it. A gray sedan parked at the end of the street. I'd never seen it before. Its windows were tinted, and it was angled slightly toward my house, as if the driver wanted a clear view of my front door. A chill crawled up my spine. I stepped back, letting the curtain fall. My heart thudded in my chest. This was silly, I told myself. I was 68 years old, a retired widow who spent her days reading and volunteering. Who would want to hurt me? Still, I checked every lock in the house. Front door, back door, windows. Everything was closed, safe. I tried to calm myself with coffee, but my hands shook so badly I spilled half the grounds on the counter. I reached for my phone. Maybe I should call my daughter Shayla in Atlanta or my son Jackson overseas. But what would I say? "Hi, honey. My neighbor told me not to go outside and I think a stranger's watching my house." They'd panic. They'd tell me to move out. They'd make decisions for me like I was a child again. No, I couldn't worry them until I knew what was really happening. At 6:30, the phone rang. I jumped so hard the mug nearly slipped from my hand. The number was unknown. My throat went dry. I hesitated, then pressed accept. Hello? Silence. I could hear breathing on the other end, slow, steady, human. But no one spoke. Who is this? I said louder. Nothing. Just that soft breathing. Then click. The line went dead. I stared at the screen, my pulse pounding. A prank call at 6:30 in the morning? Right after Arthur's warning? No chance. Someone was testing me. I checked the locks again. Everything was still shut. But the walls felt thinner now, like the house couldn't keep danger out. I sat on the couch clutching a pillow, staring at the clock. 6:45. Morning sunlight poured across the floor, but it didn't comfort me. The day felt heavy, stretched, endless. Time crawled. Every 5 minutes felt like an hour. I turned on the TV for company. News, weather, politics. Everything normal. No reports of danger. No reason for Arthur's panic. Yet the unease stayed. By 9 a.m., I was pacing. The gray car was still parked on the corner. Its engine was off, but I swore I saw a flicker of movement behind the windshield, like someone was watching through binoculars. My breath caught. Maybe it was my imagination. Maybe I was losing it. Then the phone rang again, another unknown number. I answered, forcing my voice to sound steady. Hello? This time there was background noise, traffic, voices, but no words. Who is this? Silence. Then another click. Tears stung my eyes. I wasn't a woman who cried easily, but this was too much. What was happening to me? I walked down the hallway lined with framed photos. Shayla in her law school gown, Jackson with his camera, Elijah smiling in our garden before the heart attack took him in his sleep. My knees weakened as I touched the glass covering his picture. What's going on, Elijah? I whispered. Why am I so scared? Of course no answer came. Only the creak of the old house and the ticking of the wall clock. I wandered into Elijah's old study, untouched since he died. His desk was still neat, papers stacked in perfect piles, his reading glasses resting on an old ledger. I ran my fingers over the dust. You'd know what to do, I whispered. Then, a sound. Footsteps, outside. Slow, heavy steps on the side path next to the house. My heart slammed in my chest. I froze. The sound moved closer. Someone was walking along my yard. I crept toward the window and lifted the curtain just a sliver. A man was out there, tall, dressed in dark clothes. His hands were in his pockets. He wasn't a neighbor. He wasn't a mail carrier. He was looking at my house. My hands shook. I stepped back, barely breathing. He walked past the side window, then toward the backyard. No, not the back door. I hurried to the kitchen and peeked through the glass. He was there, testing the handle of my back door. My knees nearly gave out. He was trying to get in. I clamped a hand over my mouth to keep from screaming. The door was locked, thank God, but he pushed gently, testing it again. Then, after what felt like forever, he stepped back and walked away, disappearing behind the fence. I sagged into a chair. Shaking so hard my teeth chattered, someone had tried to break into my house. Arthur was right. Something terrible was happening. I grabbed my phone and texted him. Someone was in my yard. Tried to open the door. I'm scared. What's going on? I waited. 1 minute, 2, 10, no reply. Please, Arthur, I whispered. Answer me. Nothing. By noon I was half mad with fear. My pulse raced at every creak of the floorboards. The air felt thick, hard to breathe. I was trapped. Trapped in my own home. Then the phone rang again, but this time the screen said police department. I hesitated. Should I answer? Arthur had said not to trust anyone, not even officials. But could that really include the police? My finger trembled as I pressed accept. Mrs. Vance? A deep male voice. This is Detective Carter with the police department. I need you to stay calm, stay calm. Words no one says unless something terrible has happened. What's going on? I asked. Ma'am, where are you right now? I'm at home. Why? What's wrong? There was noise behind him, voices, radios, movement. Mrs. Vance, we have witnesses who claim you were at the Cedar Grove Community Center this morning around 9 a.m. Is that correct? What? No, I shouted. I've been at home all morning. I didn't go anywhere. A pause. Ma'am, the reason I'm calling is that there was an incident at the community center. A serious one. And multiple people identified you on camera. My mouth went dry. That's impossible, he sighed. Please, Mrs. Vance, I just need you to come down to the station to clear this up. If you weren't there, we need to find out who was. Come to the station? Arthur's warning echoed. Don't open the door. Don't trust officials. Can I come later? I asked weakly. I really need you to come now, ma'am. If it wasn't you, someone is using your identity. My blood ran cold. Someone is using my identity. He hesitated. That's right. We do. The line went quiet. The silence stretched until I could hear my own heartbeat. Then he said softly, Ma'am, if you don't come voluntarily, we'll have to... I hung up. I didn't mean to. Panic took over. My fingers just moved on their own. The phone slipped from my hand and landed on the floor. No. No. This couldn't be real. How could there be witnesses? Footage? My fingerprints? Unless someone really had taken my identity. Someone who knew everything about me. I ran to the window. The gray car was gone. In its place, the police cruiser? 2 officers inside, watching my house. My knees went weak. Arthur's words echoed again. Don't open the door. No matter who it is. I typed another message to him, my fingers trembling. Police say they saw me at the community center. There's a patrol car outside. Arthur, please. I need you. This time, his reply came instantly. Don't open the door. I'm coming. 20 minutes. 20 minutes. I had to hold out 20 minutes. Outside, one of the officers picked up his radio, speaking urgently. The other looked straight at my house. I stepped back from the curtain, shaking. My whole body felt like it was buzzing, a wire about to snap. Then the phone rang again. Another number, unknown. I hesitated, then answered. Mrs. Vance? It was a woman this time, her voice young, nervous. This is Belle from Cedar Grove Community Center. I need to talk to you. What happened? I asked. What's going on? She took a shaky breath. This morning, the woman we thought was you stole over $3,000 from the donation box, and some files from the admin office, personal records. Everyone saw her, Mrs. Vance. She looked exactly like you. My mouth went dry. That wasn't me. I know, she said quickly. That's why I'm calling. I saw her up close. She looked like you, but her eyes, they were different. The way she moved, the way she talked. It was you, but it wasn't you. And the police. They don't believe me. I pressed the phone to my ear. How can someone look exactly like me? I don't know. But she knew your name. Your routine. Everything. I felt the blood drain from my face. The gray car. The phone calls. The man in the yard. Someone had been studying me. Before I could ask more, there was a loud knock on the door. Hard, official, commanding. Mrs. Vance. Police department. Please open the door. I froze. Arthur's message flashed again on my screen. Don't open the door. No matter what. The knocking grew louder. Mrs. Vance, we know you're inside. We just want to talk. Through the peephole, I saw 2 men in suits. One older, one younger, and the older one was speaking. His expression was serious, his tone firm. Ma'am, if you don't open voluntarily, we'll have to take other measures. Other measures. My hands trembled on the knob. My mind screamed at me to stay quiet. But my heart pounded with the urge to open it, to end this nightmare. Then the older man said something that made my blood run cold. Ma'am, please. We just need to confirm your identity. We have footage from this morning, and you need to see it. He lifted a photo close to the peephole. My breath caught. It was a grainy security image of a woman entering the community center, a woman who looked exactly like me, the same height, the same clothes, the same haircut. My reflection was staring back at me from that photo. I staggered back from the door, whispering, What is this? The detective's voice came again, low and patient. That's you, Mrs. Vance, or someone who wants us to think it's you. Help us understand. Open the door. I didn't move. I couldn't. Outside, the knocking stopped. Silence fell. Then I saw flashing lights bounce off the living room walls. Another car pulling up. Black and sleek. Someone else had arrived. And that's when I realized, whatever this was, it wasn't just about stolen money. It was about me. That thought wouldn't leave my head, whatever was happening. The police. The strange woman. Arthur's warning. It was all somehow about me. Through the window, I saw the black car stop behind the police cruiser. A woman stepped out. She wore a sharp dark suit and sunglasses, even though the day was cloudy. She moved with confidence, not like a neighbor or officer, but like someone who already knew exactly what she was walking into. She started talking to the detective, the older one, the man who had shown me the picture. They spoke quickly, their voices low, but I could see the tension in his body. She pointed at my house, and he shook his head. Then she stepped closer, whispered something, and he frowned. Finally, she turned and began walking toward my house, but not to the front door. She was heading toward the side of the house, the same side where the stranger had walked earlier that morning. My stomach dropped. I ran to the kitchen and peeked through the window. The woman moved with quiet purpose, her heels sinking slightly in the wet grass. She studied the windows like she was searching for a weak spot. When she reached the back porch, she stopped and looked around. Then she pulled something small and metallic from her purse, a tool. She was trying to pick my lock. My heart slammed in my chest. I backed away slowly, gripping the edge of the table to keep from collapsing. She was breaking in. She wasn't a police officer. She wasn't here to help. I grabbed the first thing I could, a kitchen knife. My hands were trembling so badly that the blade clattered against the counter. I pressed myself against the wall, holding my breath. I could hear the soft, careful sounds of the lock turning, clicking, adjusting. She was good. She'd done this before. Then, from outside, the sound of an engine roared. Arthur's car. He drove fast, too fast, and stopped right in front of my house. I saw him jump out and run straight to the detective. He was shouting, pointing toward the house. The detective's face changed from frustration to alarm. Arthur kept waving his arms, his voice rising. I couldn't hear their words through the walls, but I could see the fear in Arthur's eyes. Then, from the kitchen, I heard the final metallic click, the back door unlocked. And slowly, it opened. The woman stepped inside, quiet as a shadow. She took off her sunglasses. I froze where I stood, the knife still trembling in my hand. Then she looked at me, and my heart stopped. She had my face, not just a resemblance. Not similar. Not maybe or kind of. She was me, every wrinkle, every strand of gray hair, every tiny scar. Even the small mole near my left ear, identical. She looked at me with a calm, almost amused expression, and then she smiled. It was my smile, but colder, emptier. "Hello, Era," she said softly. Her voice was my own voice. "I think you and I need to have a very serious conversation." My grip tightened on the knife. My knees were shaking so hard I could barely stand. "Who are you?" I whispered. She raised her hands, pretending to be gentle. "Please don't scream. If you do, the people outside will come in, and trust me, you don't want that to happen." "What do you want from me?" My voice cracked. She sat down at my kitchen table like she owned the place, crossing her legs neatly. "That's not the right question," she said. "You should be asking what they want from you. Who are they?" She tilted her head, smiling faintly. "You really don't know, do you? Elijah kept you out of everything. Out of all the secrets. Out of the danger. That's what makes this so tragic." At the sound of my husband's name, my blood turned cold. "Don't talk about him," I said sharply. "You don't know anything about Elijah," she chuckled. Hearing that laugh in my own voice made me feel sick. "Oh, Era, I know more about Elijah than you ever did. I know about the offshore accounts, the encrypted files. the companies he audited for years. I know about what he discovered and what he tried to do with that information. You're lying, I said. But my words came out weak, uncertain. She leaned forward, resting her elbows on the table. He was an accountant, wasn't he? A good, honest man. But he found something, didn't he? Something big. Money moving through fake companies, politicians involved, judges, names that shouldn't have been there. And your brave husband decided to do the right thing. I shook my head, backing away. Stop talking. Let me guess, she continued, ignoring me. He gathered evidence. He documented everything. And before he could hand it over, he died in his sleep. A heart attack, they said. Quick, peaceful, convenient. My chest felt tight. My pulse was loud in my ears. He was sick, I whispered. The doctor said, "Doctors can be paid," she interrupted coldly. Men in perfect health don't just drop dead weeks before exposing a massive corruption network. Her words cut through me like knives. It couldn't be true. Elijah wouldn't have kept something like that from me. She stood and walked toward me slowly. He left something behind, Ara. A backup. A copy of everything. And we believe you know where it is. I don't, I said, shaking my head. I don't know anything about it, she smirked. That's exactly what you said 6 months ago when we met at the bank. My breath caught. The bank. The fingerprints. It was you, I whispered. Yes, she said calmly. It was me. We needed your fingerprints, your voice pattern, she sighed. Then you'll have to remember. From outside, I heard shouting. Arthur's voice still arguing with the detective. He was buying me time, but for how long? The woman's eyes followed the sound, then came back to me. You see? Even your loyal neighbor can't save you this time. He's good, but not that good. I want you to leave, I said, my voice trembling. I can't do that, she replied. You have 2 options. You find what Elijah left, or you spend the rest of your life in prison for identity fraud and theft. We have your prints, your witnesses, your video footage. Everything points to you. My stomach twisted. You can't. It's already done, she said. Unless you give me what I want. Before I could respond, the front door burst open. Arthur ran inside, his voice booming. Get away from her! The woman turned, unbothered. Arthur Stone, she said with a cold smile. Still the loyal guardian, I see. Arthur raised something in his hand, a gun. My breath caught. Don't move, he barked. Then Detective Carter entered behind him, followed by the younger officer. They both froze when they saw the 2 of us. The same face twice in one room. What the? Carter muttered. Arthur stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. It's not what it looks like, he said quickly. This woman isn't who she appears to be. The detective stared, disbelief spreading across his face. There are 2 of you, he whispered. The woman smiled faintly. Surprised? It's simple, detective. Technology, money, and patience can create miracles. Miracles? Arthur growled. You mean crimes? Carter looked at him sharply. What's going on here? Someone better start talking. Arthur ignored him and turned to me, his voice low and urgent. Do you still have the letter? What letter? I asked. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a yellowed envelope, worn from age. My heart stopped when I saw the handwriting on the front. Elijah's handwriting, it said, For Ara, open only with Arthur. My knees nearly gave out. What is this? I whispered. Arthur's eyes softened. Your answer, he said quietly. And maybe your salvation. The woman's expression hardened. Give me that envelope. Not a chance, Arthur snapped. The detective raised his hand. Everyone calm down. But it was too late for calm. Arthur handed me the envelope. My fingers shook as I tore it open. Inside was a folded letter, written in Elijah's careful handwriting. The paper smelled faintly of him, like cedar and ink. I began to read, my voice trembling. My dearest, if you are reading this, it means the danger I feared has arrived. It means I am gone, and Arthur has kept his promise to watch over you when I no longer can. Forgive me for the lies. Forgive me for the secrets. Everything I did was to keep you safe. Tears blurred my vision. Arthur gently placed a hand on my shoulder. For 20 years, I worked as an accountant for good people. But 8 years ago, I uncovered something terrible, a massive network of corruption involving judges, politicians, and businessmen. I couldn't look away, so I started gathering proof. Every transaction, every signature, every stolen dollar. I felt dizzy. The woman with my face watched me in silence, her expression unreadable. I gave copies to a journalist named Marcus Reed. 2 weeks before the story was to break, he died in a car crash. That's when I knew they would come for me too. So I hid everything, in a place only you could find. A place connected to a memory only we share. I swallowed hard. My voice shook as I whispered, "What memory?" "Do you remember our 25th anniversary, the cabin in the mountains, the oak tree where we renewed our vows? We buried a box there with our promises. That is where the truth lies. The evidence. Everything." The letter ended with words that broke my heart. "You have a choice. Reveal the truth and risk your life, or destroy it and live in peace. I won't judge you, my love. Whatever you choose, remember, I always believed you were stronger than you thought." The paper slipped from my hand. I stared at it, unable to breathe. The cabin. The oak tree. Our promises. That's where it was. Arthur looked at me. "We have to go now." The detective shook his head. "No one's going anywhere. This is now a federal matter." The woman smiled coldly. "He's right. You won't make it out of town alive if you try." Arthur pulled me toward the back door. "We don't have a choice," he whispered. "They'll kill us before we even get to the car." Carter hesitated, torn between duty and what he'd just seen. "Arthur," he said finally, "you have 2 hours. That's all I can give you before I have to report this." Arthur nodded. 2 hours is all we need." He pulled me through the back door. Behind us, I could hear the woman shouting, her voice twisting with rage. We ran to Arthur's car and jumped inside. He started the engine, tires screeching as we sped down the quiet street. My pulse pounded in my ears. Houses blurred past. The city disappeared behind us. I clutched Elijah's letter to my chest. "I don't understand," I said between gasps. "Why me? Why now? Why not just leave the past buried?" Arthur's eyes stayed on the road. "Because the past isn't buried, Ara. Elijah left something they can't afford to let anyone find. Something that could bring down some of the most powerful people in the country." I looked at him, my hands shaking. "And now they think I know where it is." He nodded. "And they're right." The world outside was a blur of trees and road signs. My chest felt heavy, like I was carrying a secret too big for one person. I opened the letter again, tracing Elijah's handwriting. My tears smudged the ink. He had trusted me with this, his final act of love, and maybe his final mistake. Arthur pressed harder on the gas. "We need to get to that cabin before they do." "Do you really think we'll make it?" He looked at me, his face grim. "We have to." The city disappeared completely behind us, replaced by winding roads and open country. The sky grew darker as clouds gathered, heavy and gray. Somewhere far behind us, sirens began to wail, and I realized this was no longer just a mystery. It was a race for the truth, and the truth could cost us everything. Arthur kept both hands tight on the steering wheel. The tires hummed against the highway, the sound steady and fast, like a heartbeat we couldn't control. I sat beside him clutching Elijah's letter, afraid to blink, afraid that if I did, everything around me would disappear and I'd wake up in my bed thinking it had all been a nightmare. But this was no dream. The world outside was real. And so was the danger following us. Arthur's jaw was set, his eyes locked on the road ahead. "We can't take the main route," he said. "Too easy to track. They'll have people waiting." My voice trembled. "How do you know?" "Because that's what I'd do," he said simply. "I used to work cases like this before I retired. If you want to catch someone, you block their only escape." He took an unexpected exit, turning down a narrow road lined with old trees. The sunlight flashed through the branches, bright and then gone. Bright and gone, like a warning light pulsing in my eyes. "Arthur," I whispered, "do you really believe Elijah hid something out there?" He nodded without hesitation. Yes, he was too careful not to. He knew they'd come for him someday. He wanted you to have a way to finish what he started. I stared down at the folded letter on my lap. Elijah's handwriting looked so calm, so steady, like he'd written it on a normal day, not under threat. I traced the words with my finger, a place only you could find, the oak tree, the promises, our 25th anniversary. It all felt so long ago, like another life. I remember that day, I said softly. He'd planned everything. The flowers, the cabin, the old record player he borrowed from the community hall. We danced under that tree. I never thought it would matter again. Arthur glanced at me for a moment, his eyes kind. Memories have strange ways of saving us, Ara. For a while, neither of us spoke. The car moved through the countryside, past quiet farms and gas stations that looked half asleep. The silence gave me time to think, maybe too much time. Questions crowded my mind. Who were these people? How had they found me? And how long had they been watching? Arthur, I said finally, you said you used to work cases like this. What kind of cases? He hesitated. Private investigations, mostly fraud, corporate corruption. Elijah hired me years ago when he started noticing strange things in his clients' ledgers. That's how we met. I looked at him in shock. So you knew about this? About what he was doing? Yes, he admitted. But I didn't know how deep it went until it was too late. When he died, I promised him I'd keep you safe. That's why I moved closer, why I was always around. My throat tightened. You've been protecting me all this time? He nodded. Until today, they never made a move. But when I saw new faces in the neighborhood, cars that didn't belong, I knew it was starting. We drove in silence for a while. The road narrowed, climbing into hills. Clouds gathered above us, heavy and gray. Somewhere behind us, I thought I saw a flash of metal, sunlight on a windshield. But when I looked again, it was gone. Arthur, I said. Someone's following us. He looked into the mirror. I see it. A black SUV was half a mile behind, keeping a steady distance. My pulse jumped. They found us, I whispered. Arthur pressed his foot down, the car leaping forward. Hold on. The road curved sharply through the trees. He took the turns fast, too fast for comfort, the tires squealing on the wet asphalt. My body pressed against the seat. I can try. He flicked the headlights twice, something I didn't understand, and then suddenly turned down a side road hidden by overgrown bushes. We bumped onto gravel, then dirt. The SUV shot past the intersection without seeing us. For a moment, there was silence again, only the ticking of the cooling engine and my ragged breathing. Arthur waited, watching the mirror, nothing. The SUV was gone. I exhaled shakily. You're unbelievable. He gave a small, tired smile. Old habits die hard. We stayed parked there for a minute, letting our hearts slow down. Then he restarted the engine and continued along the dirt road, deeper into the woods. The forest grew thicker, darker. The air smelled of pine and rain. Branches brushed against the sides of the car, scraping softly like fingertips. Every sound made me jump. How much farther? I asked. Another hour, maybe less, he said. The cabin's near the ridge by the lake. I nodded, staring out the window. The world felt both endless and closed in at once. My thoughts wandered back to Elijah. Could he really have been part of something this big? Could my gentle, quiet husband have been living a double life all those years? I remembered the night before he died. He'd been restless, pacing. When I asked what was wrong, he kissed my forehead and said, "If anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll trust Arthur." At the time, I thought he was just tired. Now those words chilled me. We stopped in a small town for gas. Arthur told me to stay in the car. I kept my head low, pretending to search for something in my purse. The station attendant looked half asleep, wiping his hands on a rag while the pump clicked steadily. A country song played on a crackly radio. Everything seemed normal, except for the man in the dark hoodie leaning against the vending machine, watching us. When Arthur came back, I whispered, "Don't look, but someone's watching." He didn't turn his head. He just got in the car, started it, and drove away like nothing had happened. Was he one of them? I asked. Probably, Arthur said quietly. They're covering the area now. Rain began to fall as we left the town, light at first, then heavier. The windshield wipers squeaked rhythmically. My hands were cold even though the heater was on. "Arthur," I said, "what if we don't make it? What if this is all for nothing?" He gave me a firm look. "Don't think like that. We're closer than you realize. Once we get those documents, we'll have proof. Real proof. And then what? You think the police will help us?" "Not all of them," he said. "But there are people out there who still care about justice. We just have to reach them before the others reach us." His words sounded brave, but behind them I heard exhaustion. He was risking everything for me, for Elijah's secret, for truth that might not even change anything. My heart ached with gratitude and fear. We drove for another half-hour before the road ended at a rusted gate. Beyond it stretched a narrow trail barely visible under fallen leaves. Arthur parked the car behind some bushes. "From here, we walk," he said. I stared at the woods ahead. "Walk in this rain?" He smiled faintly. Elijah liked places that were hard to find. We got out, pulling our jackets tighter against the cold drizzle. The forest smelled damp and alive. Every step on the muddy path made a soft squelch. Arthur carried a small flashlight, but he kept it pointed at the ground to avoid being seen from afar. As we walked, memories returned, the laughter, the vows, the way Elijah's hands had trembled when he buried that small metal box under the oak tree. He'd said it was symbolic. So our promises will last forever. Now I knew it had been more than symbolism. It had been a hiding place. How much farther? I asked after what felt like forever. Arthur checked the compass on his phone. "About a mile." The rain eased a little. Mist curled around the trees like ghostly fingers. I shivered, not from cold, but from the feeling that we were being watched. Arthur stopped suddenly and held up a hand. "Quiet," he whispered. Through the fog, faint headlights flickered between the trees. 2 vehicles. Dark shapes. Engines off, doors opening. Voices carried on the wind. "They're here," I whispered. Arthur's expression hardened. "They found the cabin first." My heart dropped. "What do we do?" "We go around," he said. "There's an old hunting trail that circles behind the property. We can approach from the back." We moved slowly, crouched low, using the trees as cover. Every snap of a twig sounded like thunder to me. My pulse was loud in my ears. When we finally reached a ridge overlooking the cabin, I saw them. 2 black SUVs parked out front, just like the ones in town. At least 4 men stood near the porch, armed. Light glowed from inside the cabin windows. "They're searching," Arthur murmured. "They haven't found it yet." The oak tree stood behind the cabin, tall and familiar even through the mist. Its massive roots curled through the wet earth like sleeping snakes. Somewhere beneath them lay the truth Elijah had died for. "How do we get to it?" I whispered. Arthur studied the terrain. "We wait until they go inside. Then we move." Minutes crawled by. Finally, 2 of the guards entered the cabin. The other 2 stayed near the porch, but turned their backs to talk. That was our chance. Arthur motioned for me to follow. We crept down the hill, staying low. The wet grass soaked my shoes, the mud clinging to my ankles. When we reached the back of the property, we crouched behind the old oak. "This is it," Arthur said softly. He pulled a small folding shovel from his backpack and began digging between 2 thick roots. The rain had softened the ground, but the soil was heavy. Each scoop made my heart pound faster. "Faster," I whispered. "They'll come back." "I'm trying," he said through clenched teeth. Then, clank. Metal. He cleared the dirt with his hands, revealing a rusted box. He lifted it carefully, his eyes wide. He really did it. The box was larger than I remembered. It had a combination lock. My hands shook as I reached for it. "He always used special dates," I said. "Maybe our anniversary." I turned the dial slowly. 2797, a soft click. The lock opened. Inside were folders, flash drives, printed documents sealed in plastic. Dozens of them. Arthur whistled under his breath. "This is enough to bury half the government." Before I could respond, a voice shouted from the distance. "Hey! Who's back there?" Flashlights swept through the trees. "They saw us!" I gasped. "Run!" Arthur grabbed the box and bolted toward the ridge. I followed, my lungs burning. Shots cracked behind us, loud, sharp, terrifying. Bark exploded from a tree near my head. "Arthur!" I screamed. "Keep running!" he shouted. We dove behind a fallen log, breathless. The rain was coming harder again, washing mud down the slope. Arthur looked at the box, then at me. "They can't get this," he said. "Even if it means—" "Don't you dare!" I interrupted. "We're getting out together." He met my eyes and nodded. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small USB drive, and pressed it into my hand. "If we get separated," he said, "you keep this safe." It's a copy. The most important one. I wanted to argue, but there wasn't time. The flashlights were getting closer. Arthur peeked over the log, then whispered, "Follow me." We crawled through the mud toward a cluster of rocks that formed a natural tunnel under the ridge. The space was narrow, but it led down to the riverbank below. We slid through the cold mud, the sound of boots pounding above us. When we emerged near the river, the forest was darker. Arthur set the box down and wiped his face. "We'll cross here. The water's shallow." My shoes filled with icy water as we waded across. The current tugged at my legs, but I kept moving. On the other side, Arthur climbed up the bank first, pulling me after him. Behind us, shouts echoed through the woods. Flashlights flickered near the ridge. They were still searching. Arthur caught his breath. "We need to hide until morning. Then we head to the highway. Do you think they'll stop?" I asked. He looked back at the dark forest. "No, not until they have what Elijah left behind." I looked down at the USB drive in my palm. It was so small, so light, yet it carried the weight of everything we'd lost. "What's on it?" I asked softly. "Names," he said. "Transactions. Enough evidence to destroy every one of them, and they'll kill us for it." "Yes," he said. "But if we run forever, Elijah's death means nothing." Rain kept falling, steady and cold. Arthur opened his backpack and checked the contents. "We still have the other drives in the box," he said. "We can't keep them all with us. Too risky. We'll bury the rest here for now, mark the spot, and take just this one." He found an old tin can near the bank, placed the USBs inside, and sealed it. Then he dug into the wet earth with his bare hands and buried it beneath a rock. "Now," he said, "we move." We walked along the river until the forest thinned and the land began to rise again. I was soaked, shaking, but I didn't stop. Fear kept me moving. Determination kept me alive. Then, faintly through the rain, came a sound that froze my blood. A helicopter. Arthur looked up. "They're scanning the area." Spotlights cut through the mist, sweeping over the treetops. We dropped to the ground, covering ourselves with branches and leaves. The noise grew louder, circling. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. When the light finally moved away, Arthur whispered, "We have to find shelter." We found an abandoned hunting shack half hidden by vines. Inside, it was cold and damp, but it had 4 walls and a roof. Arthur set the box on the floor and leaned against the wall, breathing hard. For a long time, we said nothing, just sat there listening to the rain. My clothes clung to my skin and my body shook from exhaustion. "Arthur," I whispered, "do you think we'll survive this?" He looked at me, his eyes tired but steady. "We have to. For Elijah." I nodded, staring at the muddy floor. "He trusted me with this. I won't let him down." He gave a faint smile. "That's the spirit I remember." Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The storm was getting worse. The wind rattled the shack, making the old wood groan. Arthur reached for the box again. "We'll rest for a bit, then move at dawn." But as he lifted the lid, his face changed. He froze, staring inside. "What is it?" I asked. The box was empty. Every folder, every drive. Gone. Someone had already been here. My breath caught. "Arthur, what does that mean?" He looked at me, his face pale. "It means we're not just being chased, Ara." He swallowed hard. "It means someone is one step ahead of us." Those words hit me harder than the gunfire, harder than the storm pounding outside. For a moment, the world tilted. The wind moaned through the cracks in the shack walls, and the rain whispered against the tin roof. Arthur stood frozen, staring at the empty box that should have held Elijah's evidence, the proof we had risked everything to find. But how? I asked, my voice barely more than a breath. We just dug this up. No one even knew where it was. Arthur ran a trembling hand through his wet hair. Someone did. Someone who knew Elijah's codes, his memories. Maybe someone who had access to the letter before we did. I felt my knees weaken. You think she knew? The woman with your face? He nodded grimly. She wasn't bluffing. She knew almost everything about you. If she knew the date of your anniversary, she could guess the combination. She probably sent her men here first. My throat tightened. Then why were the documents still here when we dug them up? He shook his head. Because they wanted us to find the box empty. They wanted us to know they have the evidence. It's a message. The rain grew louder, the drops turning to heavy sheets that rattled the roof. I wrapped my arms around myself, shivering. What kind of message? Arthur met my eyes. That the game's changed. We're not the hunters anymore, Ara. We're the bait. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Lightning flashed through the cracks in the walls, lighting up the shack for a heartbeat. The shadows jumped like ghosts. I sank onto the cold floor, my back against the wall. The USB drive in my pocket felt like a stone pressing into my leg, the last piece of Elijah's work that hadn't been stolen. They have everything, I whispered. All the papers, the drives. Except this one. What's the point of running now? Arthur knelt beside me. Because they don't know you still have it. That gives us a chance, but we have to move fast before they realize. He pulled a map from his backpack, spreading it across the dirt floor. His flashlight trembled over it. There's a small federal outpost about 30 miles north of here. Remote, but it's where Elijah wanted to go originally if things went bad. He had a contact there, a man named Davis. I frowned. How do you know that? Elijah told me years ago, back when he was still deciding whether to come forward. He trusted Davis, said he was clean. If we can reach him, we can hand over the drive. Lightning flashed again, bright enough to light Arthur's determined face. 30 miles, I said softly. That's forever in weather like this. I'll drive, he said. But we need to leave now. They'll come back once the rain eases. We packed quickly. Arthur kept the empty box. It might still prove something, and double-checked his gun. I glanced around the shack one last time. The walls were marked with age and bullet holes from someone else's long-forgotten fight. I wondered if they'd survived theirs. When we stepped outside, the rain hit us like cold knives. The world smelled of mud and fear. The trees creaked in the wind as if warning us not to go. Arthur turned on the flashlight and led the way through the woods back to the car. The storm muffled every sound except the thunder. Each flash of lightning showed quick glimpses of the trail, the slippery rocks, the twisted roots, the wet ground. Halfway to the car, Arthur stopped suddenly and lifted his hand. I froze. What? I whispered. He pointed ahead. 2 sets of tire tracks glistened in the mud, fresh. They're already here, he said. Move quietly. We crouched low and crept through the last stretch of trees. When we reached the spot where we had hidden the car, my heart dropped. The bushes were crushed. The car doors were open. The windshield was shattered. They found it, I whispered. Arthur cursed softly. They were fast. Inside, the seats were slashed, the dashboard torn apart. Whoever had done this had been looking for something. But they hadn't found the USB. That, at least, was still safe in my pocket. Arthur turned away, scanning the forest. We can't use the car. They might have planted a tracker or worse. So what do we do now? He tightened the strap on his bag. We walk. We started down the muddy trail, the rain soaking through our clothes. My shoes squelched with every step, but I didn't complain. There was no point. Hours passed. The forest seemed endless. Once or twice we saw headlights far off through the trees, but they never came close. Maybe the rain was working in our favor. When the storm finally began to fade, a thin mist rose from the ground. The air grew cold enough to make my teeth chatter. Arthur found a small cabin near a river, a hunter's rest stop, abandoned long ago. He checked it first, gun raised, then motioned for me to enter. Inside there was a single wooden table, a broken chair, and a stone fireplace filled with ashes. The place smelled of damp and pine. I sank onto the floor, exhausted. Arthur sat across from me, rubbing his temples. "We'll rest here for a few hours," he said. "At first light, we head north." I nodded, pulling Elijah's letter from my pocket again. The paper was damp now, but the words were still legible. My chest tightened. "Arthur." "This belongs to her," he frowned. "How?" "She was here," I whispered. "She's ahead of us." He took the tag from my hand, studying it. "They must have another team. She probably already has the rest of the files. So what's left for her to take?" He looked straight at me. "You." The air seemed to vanish from my lungs. Arthur stood, scanning the trees. "We have to move again. Now." We packed up and started walking. The terrain grew steeper, the rocks slick with moss. I slipped twice, catching myself on tree roots. Arthur reached for me every time, never letting me fall. We finally reached a ridge where the forest opened to reveal a narrow valley below. In the center stood a single building, an old communications tower beside a small concrete bunker. "There," Arthur said. "That's the outpost. Davis should be inside." We started down the slope carefully. Halfway down, a sharp crack echoed through the air. A bullet hit the tree beside us. "They're here!" Arthur shouted. We ran the last stretch, stumbling across the muddy ground. He fired twice behind us without slowing down. The bunker door was just ahead. He pounded on it with his fist. A voice came from inside. "Identify yourself." "Arthur Stone." "Private investigator." "Elijah Vance sent me." "We have the package." The door opened halfway, revealing a tall man in a gray jacket, gun raised. His eyes moved from Arthur to me, then widened. "Mrs. Vance?" Arthur nodded. "We need sanctuary, now." The man hesitated for only a second before stepping aside. "Get in." The bunker door slammed shut behind us with a heavy clang. Inside, the air smelled of metal and dust. The lights flickered weakly. "I'm Agent Davis," the man said quickly. "Elijah told me to expect you, 5 years ago." He looked at the USB drive in my hand. "That must be it," Arthur nodded, catching his breath. "It's the last copy. They have everything else." Davis motioned toward a table covered in computer equipment. "Give it here." Something in his tone made my stomach twist. Arthur's hand tightened on his gun. "We're not handing it over until we know it's safe." Davis smiled faintly. "You think Elijah didn't trust me?" Arthur didn't answer. The silence was thick. Then, somewhere above us, the faint thud of footsteps echoed through the metal roof. Davis's expression changed instantly. He turned to a monitor on the wall, security cameras showing the outside. Through the grainy feed, I saw figures moving through the trees. "At least 6 of them. They found us," he muttered. "How?" Arthur looked at me, realization dawning in his eyes. "Your phone. When you answered those calls earlier, they planted tracking code in the signal." I felt sick. "You mean I led them here?" Arthur squeezed my shoulder. "You didn't know." Davis moved fast, locking the inner door. "We have minutes, maybe less." He plugged the USB drive into a computer port and started typing furiously. "I'm uploading the data to a secure federal channel. Once it's in, they can't erase it." The screen filled with lines of code. A percentage bar appeared. Upload progress. 12% outside, gunfire erupted. The sound rattled the metal walls. Dust fell from the ceiling. Arthur aimed his gun at the door. "We're outnumbered." "Keep them off me until it finishes," Davis said, still typing. The upload ticked slowly. 19%. 24%. 27%. A loud explosion shook the floor. The outer door blew open. Smoke filled the air. Arthur fired twice. A man screamed. More shots. The noise was deafening. Faster. Arthur yelled. 39%. 42%. Bullets tore through the walls. Sparks flew. I crouched beside the desk, covering my head. Davis cursed and slammed another key. So, 61, 72%. Then, silence. The gunfire stopped. Arthur looked toward the door, breathing hard. "That's not good." Through the haze of smoke, a figure appeared. Calm, steady. Unharmed, the woman with my face stepped into the bunker. "Hello again, Ara," she said, her voice smooth and mocking. "You've been very busy." Arthur raised his gun, but she didn't flinch. "Shoot me, and you'll never know who's waiting outside with the detonator." Arthur froze. She smiled. "That's what I thought." Davis kept typing. "And she noticed?" "Stop the upload." He didn't. She pulled a pistol from her coat and aimed it at him. I said, "Stop it." My heart leapt. "Please don't." Her eyes flicked toward me. For a moment, she almost looked sorry. "You shouldn't have come this far, Era." She fired. Davis fell against the console, blood spreading across his jacket. The screen flashed red, but the progress bar jumped again. 91%. 9%. Arthur fired back. The bullet grazed her shoulder. She stumbled but didn't fall. Smoke, shouts, chaos. The bunker lights flickered wildly. 99%. The upload finished. Transfer complete. A siren blared from the computer. The data was gone, sent somewhere she couldn't reach. Arthur grabbed my arm. "Run!" We raced toward the back exit. Behind us, the woman screamed in fury. Gunshots echoed again. The metal walls rang like thunder. We burst through a narrow maintenance tunnel leading out to the hillside. Cold wind hit my face as we stumbled into daylight. Arthur was bleeding from a cut on his arm, but he didn't stop. "Keep going." Behind us, the bunker shook with a deep rumble, then exploded, sending fire and smoke into the gray sky. The blast threw us forward onto the wet ground. Dirt rained down around us. I coughed, trying to breathe. Arthur pulled me up. "Are you hurt?" he asked. I think I'm okay." We looked back at the burning wreckage. The tower collapsed, flames licking at the sky. "She's gone," I whispered. Arthur didn't answer. He was staring at the flames, his face unreadable. "Don't be so sure." From the edge of the smoke, a dark figure emerged. Limping, but alive. The woman with my face. Her eyes met mine through the haze, cold, determined. Arthur raised his gun again, but she vanished into the trees before he could fire. He lowered the weapon slowly. "It's not over." The rain began again, soft this time, washing the soot from my face. The bunker was gone, the evidence safe somewhere far beyond our reach, and yet the danger still lived. "What do we do now?" I asked. Arthur looked toward the mountains. "We find whoever received that upload. Because if she's still alive, she'll go after them next." I stared at the forest where she'd disappeared, my heart pounding. She had my face, and now she wanted my life. The rain was light again, falling in slow silver lines that shimmered on the burned ground. Smoke drifted from the wreckage of the bunker, curling toward the gray sky. I stood there frozen, watching the place that had almost been our grave. Arthur touched my shoulder. "We can't stay here." I turned to him slowly. "Where do we even go now?" "Everything's gone." "Not everything," he said. "You're still here. And the truth's out. That upload, it worked. The files are in federal hands now." I wanted to believe him, but fear sat heavy in my chest. What if they bury it? What if they pretend they never saw it? He gave a tired smile. "Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. But once the truth is out in the open, it has a way of finding light." We started walking. The ground was slippery from ash and rain. My clothes smelled like smoke and mud. I didn't ask where we were going. I just followed him through the trees, step by step, like a child following a parent through a dark room. At the edge of the forest, we found an old road. A single car was parked there, a dusty pickup with a broken taillight. Arthur peered inside. "Keys are still here," he muttered. "Guess the universe is finally giving us a break." He helped me into the passenger seat, then started the engine. It coughed twice before coming to life. We drove in silence for a long time, the wipers squeaking across the glass, the world outside a blur of gray and green. Hours passed. The adrenaline faded, leaving behind only exhaustion. My head rested against the window. Each mile felt heavier than the last. Finally, I whispered, "Arthur." "Do you think she's still out there?" His jaw tightened. "Yes," I closed my eyes. The image of her face wouldn't leave me. The same eyes, same wrinkles, same everything. Except hers were colder, emptier, like someone had erased the parts of me that still cared. "She'll come again, won't she?" I said quietly. He nodded. She's not the kind to lose. But now that the data's gone, she'll change tactics. She doesn't need the files anymore. She needs you, because you're the only loose end. I swallowed hard. Then maybe I should stop running. Arthur looked at me sharply. Don't even think that. If she wants me, maybe it's better I end this on my own terms, I said. I'm tired of being afraid. Tired of hiding. He reached over and squeezed my hand. We'll end it together, but not by giving up. We drove through the evening until the road opened into a small town, a place so quiet it looked forgotten by time. Faded signs, peeling paint, a diner with flickering neon that read, Eats. Arthur parked behind it. Inside, the diner smelled like coffee and fried onions. Only 2 people sat at the counter, an old couple sharing a slice of pie. The waitress, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes, looked up and smiled. Long night? She asked. You have no idea, Arthur said. She poured us coffee without asking. I cupped the mug in both hands, letting the warmth seep into my fingers. For a few precious minutes, it felt almost normal. The waitress leaned closer. You folks traveling through? Arthur hesitated. Something like that. She nodded as if she'd heard it all before. Road's quiet this time of year. You two be careful, though. Heard on the radio there was some kind of explosion up near the ridge. I froze. Arthur kept his voice calm. You don't say. Yeah, she said, lowering her voice. FBI's already on it. Said it was some domestic group or something. You never know what's true these days. I exchanged a glance with Arthur. He mouthed, stay quiet. We finished our coffee quickly. As we stood to leave, the waitress smiled again. You folks take care now. Outside, the air smelled of rain and gasoline. The pickup sat where we left it. I climbed in, glancing at the streetlights flickering in the mist. Then I saw her, across the road, half hidden behind a row of cars, her silhouette. My own outline staring back at me. Same coat, same posture. Watching, my heart stopped. Arthur, I whispered. She's here. He followed my gaze, his hand moving to his gun. Get down. Before he could move, a black SUV rolled up behind us. Its headlights flooded the street. Another pulled in from the side. We were boxed in, Arthur cursed. They're faster than I thought. The SUV doors opened. Men in dark coats stepped out. One of them shouted, Hands where we can see them! Arthur gunned the engine, spinning the pickup around. Tires screeched. The truck shot forward, clipping a trash bin, sparks flying. Bullets shattered the back window. I ducked, covering my head. Hold on, he yelled. We sped down the narrow street, weaving between parked cars. The SUVs followed close behind, engines roaring. Glass shattered, alarms blared. I could hear my own heartbeat over the chaos. Arthur took a sharp left onto an old service road that led toward the river. The rain had started again, turning the dirt into slick mud. The truck fishtailed wildly. They won't stop, I shouted. They don't have to, he said grimly. We just have to reach the bridge first. Headlights swayed behind us, gaining ground. I looked ahead. The old wooden bridge stretched across the swollen river, half-rotted and narrow. It was suicide to cross in this weather. Arthur, don't. We don't have a choice. We hit the bridge at full speed. The boards groaned, the truck bouncing hard with every plank. Halfway across, another vehicle slammed onto the bridge behind us. The structure shook violently. Suddenly, there she was, standing at the far end, in the middle of the road. The woman with my face. Calm. Still. Waiting. Arthur's eyes widened. She's blocking the way. Stop the car! He slammed the brakes. The truck skidded, stopping just feet from her. Rain poured down around us. She didn't move. Arthur raised his gun through the window. Don't! She smiled faintly, water running down her face. You won't shoot me, Arthur. You never could. His eyes narrowed. You're right. But she might. She turned her gaze toward me. The smile faded. Ara, she said softly. You don't understand what you've done. Those files, they weren't what you think. I opened the door slowly, stepping out into the rain. Then tell me. She took a step closer, hands raised. Elijah wasn't the hero you believe he was. Those files, he created them. He built the network he claimed to expose. It was all a cover, and when he got scared, he tried to pass the blame. You're lying, I said. My voice trembled, but I stood my ground. Am I? She said. Ask Arthur. Ask him who really gave me the assignment. I turned to Arthur. What is she talking about? Arthur didn't answer right away. The silence between us was louder than the storm. Ara, there are things Elijah never told you. Things I didn't either. My chest tightened. Arthur, what did you do? He lowered his gun slowly. I wasn't just his friend. I was paid to watch him, to report what he found. When I realized he was in over his head, it was too late. The world spun. You worked for them? I worked for everyone, he said, until I met him. Then I stopped sending reports. That's why they sent her, to finish what I wouldn't. The woman smiled sadly. See, even heroes have secrets. Rain soaked through my hair down my face. So what happens now? I asked quietly. You kill me? No, she said softly. I save you. The people who built this, who built me, will never stop until you're gone. I can make you disappear. New name, new life. No more running! Arthur stepped forward. Don't listen to her. She looked at him coldly. You don't get a say, traitor. She pulled a small device from her coat pocket and pressed a button. A faint beeping filled the air. The same sound I'd heard before the bunker exploded. Bomb, Arthur hissed. I froze. You'll die too, she shrugged. One of us has to. Arthur lunged toward her. She fired. The shot hit his shoulder. He fell to one knee but kept moving, tackling her to the ground. The detonator flew from her hand, landing near the truck. Get it, Arthur shouted. I ran. My hands shook as I picked it up. A red light blinked faster and faster. 10 seconds. 9, 8. Arthur and the woman struggled in the mud. Their faces, so alike, so different, blurred through the rain. Go, Era, Arthur yelled. Run! I can't leave you. He looked at me with fierce eyes. You promised Elijah you'd be strong. Now prove it. 5 seconds. 4. I pressed the button. The blinking stopped. The device went dark. Silence. Then a gunshot cracked through the storm. Arthur fell backward. Still. The woman stood over him, her gun smoking, her chest rising and falling. Blood ran down her arm from where he'd stabbed her with a knife. She looked at me, eyes full of something that almost looked like pity. It's over, she said softly. No, I whispered. It's just beginning. I raised the gun Arthur had dropped and fired. The recoil jolted through me. She stumbled back, shock flashing across her face. For a moment, the rain seemed to stop. Then she fell, hitting the ground hard. I dropped the gun, my breath breaking. The world was quiet except for the rain and the river below. I fell to my knees beside Arthur. His eyes fluttered open. You did it, he whispered. Don't talk, I said, pressing my hands to his wound. He smiled faintly. You're stronger than you thought. Those were his last words. By the time the sirens reached us, distant, rising, the bridge was slick with blood and rain. I sat beside him, staring at the river. The woman's body lay only a few feet away, her eyes open, reflecting the flashing red lights of the approaching cars. I should have felt relief. Instead, all I felt was emptiness. Weeks later, I was sitting in a safe house under a new name. The news played softly on the old television. Federal authorities confirmed that leaked financial documents exposed a multi-billion-dollar corruption network spanning 3 continents. Elijah's face appeared briefly on the screen. Then Arthur's, both labeled as whistleblowers. The anchor's voice called them heroes. I turned off the TV and stared at the rain outside the window. The world was safer now, at least that's what they said. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over, because that night, in the quiet, I caught my reflection in the glass, and for the briefest moment, it blinked before I did. My breath caught. The face in the window smiled, a fraction too late. Then it was gone. Somewhere out there. She was still alive, or someone new who wore my face now was. and I realized the truth Elijah had died for was never about files or numbers. It was about how far people will go to erase guilt, to replace lives, to rewrite stories. My name wasn't Ara anymore, but whoever I was now, I wasn't running. Not anymore. Because if she ever came back, she'd find me waiting. Some stories end quietly, not with a scream, not with a gunshot, but with silence, the kind that follows when the truth has finally been spoken. Ara's world burned, her face was stolen, her peace shattered. Yet in the end, she didn't run, she stood. Because sometimes survival isn't about hiding, it's about standing still while the world tries to erase you and whispering, "I'm still here." Somewhere out there, maybe she's still watching. Maybe she's waiting. But this time, Ara's not afraid. And that is where her story ends. Or maybe it's where the next one begins. If this story kept you watching till the end, please like this video. It really helps the channel grow. Subscribe for more stories like this. Stories about truth, courage, and strength hidden inside ordinary people. Tell me in the comments, what would you have done if someone stole your face in your life? I read every comment. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, stay curious, and remember, sometimes the scariest thing you can face is yourself. New stories every day. Subscribe and never miss the next twist.